What's up, everybody? 2 hours of Gojo and Golic is about to come your way. We have some great stuff coming up on our second to last show today. So we will talk about LeBron opening up about his relationship with Michael Jordan. Plus, Aaron Rodgers still doesn't have a team. What's going on? Where's he going to land? We will keep talking about it. And of course, March Madness continues. We will talk Sweet 16. Plus, we have a great in-studio guest. Emerson Lazia will be joining us to talk all things hot dogs, ? All that and more coming up right now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield with you guys. Fun show coming up, as always. Download, subscribe, rate, and review. Leave us a 5-star rating, and watch the show Monday through Friday for 2 more days. Well, I guess 1 more day after this now, if you're already here. 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the Gojo and Golic YouTube channel, as Jesse mentioned. Emerson Lazia, famed Glizzy Gladiator, going to stop by and give us his top 5 stadium dogs for the upcoming year in Major League Baseball, as it is opening day. Happy opening day to all who celebrate. We had our preview with Tim Kirkchin yesterday, if you wanted to get a little bite of that, Dad, as he gets set for his happiest day of the year. And I know we always debate the best sports weekend of every year or the best sports weekend of the calendar year for people, but that's probably a different strokes for different folks thing. And I cannot imagine anyone happier about their thing starting than Timmy Kirkchin is as Major League Baseball tips off in earnest today.
I think there's like 15 games today, and it's usually a lock. Where I'm looking at where the games are and where it's going to snow, because there's always snow somewhere on opening day. You always get that. You always get that March late snowstorm somewhere. Maybe not today. I'm looking at the places, in New York, in Washington, in Cincinnati, in Chicago. I don't know the weather around the country, but normally you see some really cold weather or some snowflakes on opening day. So I hope it doesn't happen, because it's no fun playing baseball in freezing cold weather. I hope it goes off smoothly. But yeah, Timmy Kirkchin's favorite day, no doubt.
I'm looking around right now, and I'm seeing a lot of temperatures in the 50s and 60s. So, Dad, you might buck the trend here and actually have – so because I'm with you, it is a spring rite of passage in the Midwest, where you grew up and Mom grew up in the Midwest, but we spent a lot of our lives there, all going to school in South Bend. And one of the things you got really familiar with was, the spring football game's coming up here. Make sure you check the weather forecast, because there's a non-zero chance you could get an April snowstorm and all of a sudden wind up playing that game in the snow. So it absolutely is always something you got to kind of keep your head on a swivel. And I'd imagine, Dad, going out and having to hit a baseball in the cold, about as miserable as anything that you would do in sports, right?
Oh, be brutal. Swinging that bat, and hitting the ball where you get the loose feeling with the grip. I'm sure they're pros, so maybe it doesn't really happen that way like we did in Little League, comparing the pros to Little Leaguers. But yeah, I mean, swinging hard, when you're cold, boy, you got to warm up, and the pitcher and their arms. I mean, it's just not something they're used to doing. They do it, and they've done it in the past. I'm sure every player, you play long enough, you play in all kinds of weather. But yeah, that's one sport where there's more standing around than moving. If you're in a cold sport but you're moving, at least you're moving and can you work the body temperature up. But there is so much standing around in baseball that the cold's just going to seep into your body.
And you know what? Another area where maybe the pitch clock helping out in ways we could not have predicted, getting guys up and moving out of the damn cold that starts the beginning of the season. So hopefully, if you're out there getting ready to go to the ballpark for a game today, we wish you warm weather, sunny skies, and tons of dingers early in the season. We're looking forward to that. We've got the Sweet 16 that gets going again today, Dad, on the men's side of the bracket. The matchups today: BYU against Alabama, Maryland against Florida, Arizona against Duke, and Arkansas versus Texas Tech. So a lot of interesting in that group, Dad. Certainly BYU has captivated America, finding out that the heir to the Tater Tot franchise is on that roster. Yes. Maryland, fresh off a buzzer beater win. Florida outlasted UConn. Duke, what most people view as the top team left in the tournament, even though seeding wise, that's Auburn playing. And then John Calipari keeps it rolling, man. That Arkansas squad that seems to be getting healthier as the tournament's going along. We'll get to the news made yesterday on Pat McAfee's show, but the day before, he had John Calipari on earlier in the week, and he talked about how more of his roster should be available to him in this upcoming game. And as that team gets healthier as the tournament goes along, you combine that with Cal's coaching and experience in this area and this time of the year, it makes for a really interesting out, as they're really the only quote-unquote Cinderella left in the dance now.
Yeah, they're the only double-digit seed, no 11s or lowers this year. They're the 10th seed taking on, as you said, Texas Tech. Winner of that game takes on the winner of Florida and Maryland. But yeah, that's Calipari's a story, obviously, and his team certainly, as you said, if he has more players available, that's certainly a game to keep an eye on. Good storylines in each of the games.
No, absolutely, lots to look forward to there, Dad. And then, of course, we've got that Friday. We've got Ole Miss, Michigan State, where angry Tom Izzo will be back and better than ever, coming off his rant about the transfer portal. Kentucky, Tennessee, Michigan, and Auburn, who is the number 1 overall seed, and then Purdue versus Houston. So, Dad, remind me your brackets as we've measured who's still alive and who's going on, who you have going all the way in the bracket that you've offered up in the tournament that we're both a part of. You and I are in the tournament over the Dan Patrick show. So that's the bracket that I've been operating on, where Duke is my national champion. I don't know about yours.
I'm doing well on probably 4 of my 10 brackets in the different contests that I'm in. Again, I never claim to be smart enough to pick the champions. I do the shotgun spray on the wall, and I'm just looking to win money. But in the main sheet, I have 7 of the 8 Elite Eights available. The only one I have out, I had St. John making it to the Elite Eight. But I have Florida, Michigan State, Auburn, Duke, Alabama, Houston, and Tennessee all making it to the Elite Eight. I have Florida, Michigan State, Duke, and Tennessee in the Final Four, Florida and Duke in the finals, and Duke winning it all. So I still have everybody available except for St. John. So sheet's looking pretty good. But again, I think all depending on the early rounds and the points that you scored in your particular contest, I think there's a lot of people that are pretty chalky going from the Elite Eight on down.
All right, so Dad, if I asked you to cash it or trash it against the chalk and say Arkansas over Texas Tech, Arkansas getting 5.5 points in their matchup against the Red Raiders, would you cash that or trash that?
You know what? I'll cash that. Sure, why not? I mean, it's a great storyline. We usually see one. I don't know if you call a Calipari team a Cinderella story, but they are a 10 seed, and it's a pretty chalky tournament. The highest seeds coming after that are Ole Miss at a 6 seed playing Michigan State, and BYU a 6 seed playing Alabama. But yeah, I'll cash Arkansas taking out Texas Tech. Why not? What the hell, I got nothing to lose. That's in my loser part of the bracket anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's where you can take a calculated risk like this, and I'm with you. Tiero's coming back, as Fland already back in that lineup. Cal announced he'd be available on McAfee's show, so I'll rock with you on that one. Cash it or trash it, presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. So maybe we'll have that mixed in. And again, it feels weird to say that because John Calipari is one of the titans of the game in terms of coaching. Yep. He's a guy that's made so many deep runs at now so many different stops, and yet the seeding dictates that we go on there. Dad, then, of course, what captivated a lot of folks yesterday, anytime LeBron James speaks, people listen. And yesterday, LeBron James spoke at length in a taped interview with Pat McAfee's show, friend of the program, LeBron James, I should say. And was interesting, Dad, to see the response. Now, overall, twice, 2-time LeBron versation champs over here. LeBron James had a hell of a day, Dad, where he talked at length about his relationship with Michael Jordan, the other man that's been talked about in lockstep with him in the GOAT debate for years of LeBron's career. He talked about the defense of his son, Bronny, especially when positioned against Stephen A. Smith and the confrontation that we had seen on court with them. He took a weird shot at Brian Windhorst, which I didn't really totally understand. And then, oh, by the way, Dad, capped off the day by going out in that game. He did this in person at Pat McAfee's studio in Indianapolis, and then went out and played later that game against the Indiana Pacers, where he ends up with the buzzer-beating tip-in at the end of the game to help get the Lakers the win. So, busy day for LeBron James. Of that conversation, Dad, what stuck out for you? Or if you want to start with the game, I know that was also particularly interesting. It was blacked out here for YouTube TV viewers in Los Angeles, so sucks to be me.
Yeah, I'd like to start out with the game. I mean, a 120-119 win for the Lakers, who had a lead in this game, and then the Pacers came back, took the lead on just absolute sieve defense by the Lakers. The blowing by Luka Doncic is becoming the norm. I mean, listen, he was never a defensive stalwart, but they were just clearing out and going one-on-one with Luka and blowing by him for layups. And it was that's something the Lakers are a team that needs to outscore you in a higher scoring game because their defense is just non-existent. But for LeBron has gone 1,282 straight games with at least 10 points. He had he didn't have 10 points going into the fourth quarter. He had no field goals. It's the first time in his 1,553 games that he had no field goals made going into the fourth quarter. Now, he did end up with over 10 points. He ended up with 13 points thanks to the tip-in at the other end. With 10 seconds to go, they were driving. LeBron had the ball in the corner, got it to Luka, the top of the key. Luka had a driving floater that went off the rim, and LeBron tipped it in and clearly just beat the buzzer for the win. It was actually LeBron's 8th buzzer beater. Michael Jordan leads the way with 9. Kobe Bryant and LeBron have 8, and Joe Johnson has 8. So those are the top 4. But Michael Jordan, who was part of the conversation that LeBron had on the McAfee show, leads the way with 9. But, big game. Both teams, I think one win separated them. I think the Lakers had one more win than the Pacers, both obviously in the playoff mix. So that was a big win for the Lakers.
Yeah, big win for Los Angeles. We've talked about their real only goal, stay out of the play-in, so everything down the stretch of the season matters a lot for them because they need the rest as much as they need anything else. And yeah, Dad, the defensive questions persist because metrics-wise, coming off the Luka Doncic trade and in the months after that, they were one of the best teams statistically defensively in the NBA. And a lot of that was the game planning, the way they'd gone about this. Luka Doncic, maybe not a great primary defender, but a smart enough guy to get his hands on some basketballs. But the question becomes, when you get to the postseason and people have time and all of this bandwidth to prepare in a 7-game series, what's it going to look like, especially in the lineups where you've got Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic out on the court at the same time, and you can only protect but so much in your defensive schemes. These guys, if teams want to target them in the way that becomes way more pronounced in the postseason.
And for the Pacers, all 5 starters were in the teens. Nobody with 20 points. I wonder if anybody had, coming off the bench, Benedict Mathurin as the leading scorer for the Pacers at 23 points. Played 30 minutes off the bench, scored 23 points, and I want to know who had him on the bingo card as the team's leading scorer. But yeah, that was a heartbreak for the Pacers as LeBron was in great position for the missed floater tip-in to leave there with a victory. I think they go on and play the Bulls now.
Yeah, it's a interesting stretch for them coming up. And yeah, Dad, you're right. The constant rotation around the name Michael Jordan was sort of the thing that came up a little bit yesterday, as did now watching the back and forth beef between him and Stephen A. that feels, as someone put it to me yesterday, very pro wrestling in all of it from both sides, where they're going to continue to trade barbs publicly. I saw Stephen A. had the quote yesterday on his show that if LeBron James he said he would have gotten his ass kicked because if LeBron would have put hands on him in that on-court altercation, Stephen A. would have swung, and then promptly gotten put down. Those were his words. I know the clip says that he just would have swung, and people kind of ran with that. But as he pointed out, he goes, I mentioned I would have gotten my ass kicked, and that would have been the end of it. But then you have LeBron James posting the boxing video of him. So it's interesting, Dad, to watch LeBron James's willingness to entertain this now that his son was entered into the conversation, because that seems to be where this defense mechanism from LeBron stems from. Not his own career and really not his own accolades right now, but once his son became the subject of a lot of criticism that he thought crossed the line, now he seems a lot more willing to play in this than he would have been before.
Yeah, you don't have kids yet, Mike. Let me tell you, there is nothing that will boil a parent's blood more than something happening with their kids. And LeBron even said, listen, you want to talk about basketball on the court, everybody is fair game, you know, whether it's good or bad. So he wasn't talking about on the court with Bronny. It was that Stephen A., according to LeBron, went personal. And I'm telling you, there is no anger like the anger a parent has when somebody does something you foresee, you think to your kid that you will lose it, and you will boil over, and it doesn't take much. And so LeBron, I don't know the gist of everything. LeBron said it was more personal than professional because he said professional is wide open. I wasn't there. I didn't hear it. But let me just say, I understand a parent sticking up for a kid. You should know that through your college day, and you and your brother and sister in the social media with your mother wanting to go back at people that would get on you guys. It just flips a switch for a parent.
Yeah, I can certainly understand where the sentiment comes from and appreciate it. And even with Bronny, I can understand in this particular instance where I think I know the comments that are the ones that pissed LeBron off, because I remember Stephen A. very personally appealing to LeBron James where he said, as a father, you need to stop this. And how that felt like it sort of crossed the line where it was just a criticism of basketball. And now Stephen A. has been very public talking about how he thinks Bronny is going to be a good future pro and that he is going to develop into an NBA player. And I don't know, Dad, the whole thing is kind of about blurred lines now. And again, I just think more of LeBron now being willing to be candid. Maybe it's the combination of that late in his career, all these different things that led to the guy that is one of the consensus great players of all times. And hearing him talk about, and I think this is one of the things that's actually interesting, is an all-time great talking about their relationship with the other all-time greats, asking about him and Michael Jordan, him talking about how with him and Kobe Bryant, they really didn't have much of a relationship until after Kobe retired. And then once LeBron became a Laker, then Kobe rolls out the red carpet and goes to help him. Michael Jordan and LeBron James had that moment at the NBA 75. But besides that, LeBron said, we don't talk because I'm sure Michael Jordan is sick of the constant comparison, doesn't like seeing me out there as a competitor going after and attacking his legacy by trying to be better than him on the court. And all those things, Dad, the inner workings of all-time greats and the way that they move, fascinating to me. And I thought LeBron was great with the insight on that front.
Yeah, LeBron said, I'm still playing now, so there's no real relationship with Michael Jordan. I think that the best story, and maybe we'll just tease it over for the next segment, was Chocolate Cookie Gate. That was interesting. Why there were no more cookies on the Miami Heat's plane, and who was at fault for stopping the cookies.
Yeah, people forget last time on Dragon Ball Z. If they do, Dwayne Wade told the story on a podcast about potential meddling with LeBron James' famous post-game treats and favorite post-game treats, and how that may have actually been the beginning of the end of his time in a Miami Heat uniform. So coming up next, we can get to the bottom of that, and actually how that puts LeBron James at odds with one of our friends, Dan Le Batard, next on Gojo and Golic.
So I'm going to tell you what impressed me the most, and I feel like you followed in the footsteps. Through my years of being in this business, I've done a few commercials, and one was for a pizza, and I had to eat pizza, and you know, there's a lot of different takes and such. And they put a trash can down beside me.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like,
Spit bucket.
and I was like, what's that for? And they were like, oh, a spit bucket. I'm like, who the hell spits out food? They said, just about everybody. You know, when you do multiple shots, you take a bite, you spit it out. I'm like, are you kidding? I will not spit any of it out. I will eat it all. That's what impressed me about you. You ate it all. I mean, it wasn't one bite of a beignet and put it down. It was multiple bites of multiple beignets, and I know you do that for the rest of them. I mean, I sat there, little tear to the eye.
Yeah, that was the most
very proud father moment. Say, it's my boy.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, I cannot physically bring myself to leave food on the table, Dad. Quite literally. That was, I think, in reference to the Tums videos that we did in the food tour of New Orleans, where by the end of the day, I was ready to pop, but that was not going to let the fun stop in any of those restaurants. So glad I could make you proud, at least in that moment.
Yeah, it was a good move. It was a very, very proud moment. I mean, I was stunned when I heard people spit food out because of all the takes you take. So I just was, no. And you just naturally, the thing about you as well is when you're doing a food thing, you have to talk after a bite. You take the biggest bites of food, the biggest bites, before you're going to talk. It's one thing to take a natural bite to where you can still speak, but you take the biggest bites. It is hilarious.
Entertaining. It's what the people want.
Yes.
Listen, I am part of the Guy Fieri generation of on-camera eaters who take massive bites and not the dainty little TV bites. So that's just who I'm going to be. And unfortunately, I don't think I have the capacity to change in any meaningful way like that anytime soon. We will get to Russell Wilson here in just a minute as we've got some veteran quarterback news and sound from the last couple of days in the world of sports. We also, in honor of Major League Baseball's opening day, wanted to highlight some of the specialty food items that I think we discussed briefly yesterday that would be available at ballparks across this nation, and that I would definitely not spit out if prompted to go try them there. And Dad wanted to lead dog with this. It got a lot of great buzz yesterday, but the New York Yankees Patroni tiramisu in a helmet, maybe the most exciting ballpark menu item I am to see this year. A triumph of human ingenuity. Putting things in helmets in ballpark is almost always a winning recipe. And this one, tiramisu, a dessert that I think could be primed for a Brussels sprouts-like moment coming up soon.
And putting it in a helmet that is more easily accessible to eat, to take back to your seat, hold the little helmet, and eat out of it. It is fan-friendly. It's great. It's a great dessert, and it's fan-friendly. So kudos to the Yankees for that.
It looks delicious, and
Yeah,
I do appreciate what you're saying, that you can easily bring this to your seat and eat it with a spoon, whatever. What I will say is, are we trying to do a cocoa powder-esque cinnamon challenge? Like, there's so much cocoa powder on top of it. If you are talking, if you breathe wrong, that's going up your nose, okay? And we're going to have a lot of people coughing in the stands. So I don't know if that's just for, visual, that they're not actually going to give it to you with that much cocoa, because the cocoa's like spilling all over the helmet. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just a promo picture, but if someone handed that to me with that much cocoa powder on top of it, I'd be a little shocked.
I would say it's probably for the promotional picture, I would hope. But if not, we are fresh off a Super Bowl in New Orleans. We were just talking about beignets. You have to apply the same eating principles to that, where you just don't inhale when you're taking the bite. Make sure that you arm yourself with that knowledge before you go to the Yankees game this season. Speaking of edible items, Dad, you brought it up last segment. LeBron James on Pat McAfee did address maybe the most important element of recent LeBron lore on the show, and that was Cookiegate with the Miami Heat. Dwayne Wade goes on a podcast and says that LeBron James, every flight coming back from the road, used to come on the plane and always get handed his special cookies. Said LeBron, one of his vices, he loves chocolate chip cookies. And every flight he would get them, and then all of a sudden one flight he got cut off, and that was when Dwayne Wade knew the end was near in Miami if Pat Riley was going to meddle in all of that. We've had our friends at the Dan Le Batard Show do a lot of reporting on this. Dan said the folks that he heard from in the Miami Heat said this isn't true. LeBron James goes on and sets the record straight, Dad, that apparently it was his routine to come on. The flight attendants, they would always be making the hot and fresh cookies with a little crisp around the edge, and he would get those cookies from them. And he said he came on one day, looked at the flight attendants, and they kind of gave him a look like something was amuck, and they said no more cookies on the plane here. And LeBron James had realized, because all decisions come from Pat Riley, that this was indeed his doing. So LeBron coming out and endorsing Dwayne Wade's version of events here, Dad. So case closed on Cookiegate. Is this Pat Riley's doing once again?
Yeah, and LeBron went on to say that then when Dwayne Wade wanted to get paid, they didn't pay him, and he went to Chicago, and he thought, well, maybe that was the start, But that was just hilarious. He just said he gave the flight attendants a look, didn't get the cookies, gave Dwayne Wade a look, and Dwayne Wade gave the look like we both know where this came from. So, I mean, again, if this is true, I mean, how do you stop cookies from being on a plane? And I love LeBron. He said, I'd get my cookies, get my drink, and then we'd gamble, which is about as common as can be on any professional flight. Any professional sport flight, there is gambling, and normally for big money. Been a part of it, been very scared on some flights, but I just chuckled when I heard that.
Yeah, those who know hear Boo-Ray and think one thing, and it's exactly what LeBron James described. So glad we could put the important issues to bed there. Jesse, speaking of someone who is probably not in the back of the plane playing much, Boo-Ray, Russell Wilson had his introduction in New York with the Giants yesterday, and he seems to think that he's going to be the guy in New York this year.
Yeah, listen to him talk about how much confidence he has right now in his hopes of being a starter.
Do you expect to be the starter, or you have to compete for that? Like, how do you view that?
Yeah, I expect to be a starter and come in here and be ready to rock and roll every day. I think to be able to lead, I think this team's really looking for somebody to lead them in every way in terms of the process, in the off season, during the season, our habits and our thought process, and how we create a great winning culture, and how do we continue to establish that and to really build on the things that we do well and the things that we continue to need to do. And so I think the big part for me is, and just try to, this might be my 14th year to be able to lead an amazing group of men that really have, big hopes and goals and dreams and desires, and we all share the same goal.
All right, man, Russell Wilson, he wants to be the leader of this team. What do we think? And, there's still questions about what the Giants are going to do in the draft when it comes to possibly getting a quarterback, so we don't really know.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, that to me is still the big question. What do they do at 3? Do they take Do they take Shedeur Sanders, or do they take his teammate, Travis Hunter? Because if Cleveland at 2 doesn't go quarterback, and there are some mock drafts that have him taking a quarterback, they're going to go Abdul Carter to put on the other side of Myles Garrett. In New York, they have Thibodeau and Brian Burns as their edge rushers. So more of a need would be outside of quarterback would be Travis Hunter, who could play, DB and play some wide receiver, be a weapon for Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston. So that's going to be the question. A lot of people don't think that this would stop the Giants from getting Shedeur. Shedeur would just sit and wait, which is fine. But Russell, I think Russell will be the starter as well, right? I mean, it's basically a 1-year deal could be up to $21 million, but I think they have to go 17-0 for him to hit the full value of the incentives. But he's guaranteed $10 million. We know Jameis Winston is making $4 a year for the next 2 years, but that could be a 1-year deal. They may open the competition to the two of them, but I would expect Russell Wilson will be the starter.
I would agree, and the more I think about it, I start to wonder, to your point about what the Giants do at that third pick, because we'll get to Matt Miller's latest mock draft coming up in the next hour. Adam Schefter going on NFL Live yesterday and saying that if he had to handicap it right now, he would imagine that Abdul Carter is the pick at number 2 for the Cleveland Browns, which would open the Giants up to have that decision at 3. And, Dad, I had to sit there and do this exercise for another show yesterday, picking a top 5 in the draft. And I operated off that information and this idea that, hey, if you're Kevin Stefanski, maybe there's still the Kirk Cousins trade move on the table if you wanted to get a more veteran player. Or you think, hey, Kenny Pickett at quarterback in this offense in a year where there might not be as much pressure as a place like the New York Giants on the Browns, even though I think there's a fair amount on Kevin Stefanski, and you take the best player available. I get down with the Giants, and all of a sudden I'm going, all right, in the name of trying to save everyone's jobs, would you really pick a quarterback that most people view as probably outside of the top 15 prospects, top 20 prospects in the draft, over one of the greatest two-way players we've ever seen come out of college football, and one of the most exciting, a true generational prospect? Like, we lob that word around for so many people, but we've actually got one here in Travis Hunter. Would you really forsake that if you're the Giants and not take Travis Hunter? And I couldn't do it. So I had Travis Hunter going at 3, and then all of a sudden you start to get down into the range of the teams that have quarterbacks. And I do wonder if, kind of like Kenny Pickett's draft class, oddly enough, talking about him now with the Cleveland Browns, if we're a year, remember, we talked about Malik Willis as the other guy that might be the first rounder in that class, and then that slide began pretty precipitously. I don't think that Shedeur falls out of, probably even the top 10 or top 15, but I do wonder if, relative to where we've been talking about him, we're due for a little bit of regression the closer and closer it actually gets to draft day.
Yeah, I mean, because you look at after the Giants, New England has a quarterback, Jacksonville has a quarterback, Vegas does, the Jets do, Carolina does, New Orleans, certainly could probably use one, and Chicago does. So you're right. There could be a fall. And I keep saying this, but it's true, because I always hearken back to something Ron Jaworski told me, played quarterback in the NFL forever, that's why I keep saying it all depends on the grade. I go back to when Ryan Tannehill was taken, I think, 7th overall by the Dolphins, and everybody kind of scratched their heads, kind of the way everybody kind of scratched their heads when Daniel Jones was picked by the Giants. But Jaworski, I remember talking to Jaworski after Tannehill got picked, and it didn't work, right? It didn't work. But what Jaworski said is teams obviously have to shut out all the noise from the outside, even though I think Jacksonville has been talked into picking Mason Graham, because he's number 5 in every single mock draft. No matter what Jacksonville direction they were going, they were like, everybody has us taking Mason Graham. We got to take this defensive tackle. But Jaworski said, if the team thinks that the quarterback is the future, is the franchise, you do whatever you have to get him. Everything else be damned. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, what you or I think, or any other analyst on a former player. Doesn't matter. What is your grade, and do you think it is a franchise quarterback that will lead your team for the next decade? If it is, and he talked about Miami thinking Tannehill was, you take him. You get him. So that's all I have to ask is, Do the Giants think Shedeur Sanders is a franchise? He's our leader for the next 10 years. If he is, then you take him. If you're questioning it, then you look at a talent, because I think Abdul Carter, if Browns don't go quarterback, will go Abdul Carter to put on the other side of Myles Garrett. Then I don't know how you pass up Travis Hunter. But if you think Shedeur is a franchise decade-long quarterback, you take him.
Well, that's the problem, though, with trying to analyze that is we can't know what the Giants are thinking, so all we can do is go off of this. Like, yeah, of course, it only takes one team, and that's the goal with all of these guys is it just takes one team to like you. It's why we see a million stories about dudes that had no communication with the team that drafted them before it, and then they go and they hand their name in on the card at the podium. We can't predict what the Giants are going to do in that regard. We're not insiders. We don't have anyone in the building, so we can just go on what we see on the outside, and what we see on the outside makes that a more difficult thing to try and slice through. It's why when you see someone go rogue, there is shock and there's a lot of risk in that, and you have to know. And that's why we spend so much time trying to peg guys into the right holes with height, weight, the metrics that they stand by to put them in a box that makes it easier to sell. All that, yeah. So, yeah, listen, the Giants might like him. We have no idea, and we have no way of knowing that. So when we analyze it on the outside, it's based off of what everyone can see, which is the measurables, which is the tape, and none of that so far has pointed to Shedeur Sanders being an actual top 5 draft pick, even if the need, or to your point, one team's fascination might make it so. Coming up next, I want to focus on another franchise's assessment of their young star quarterback. Next on Gojo and Golic.
Oh, wait, real fast. Wait, Gojo, real fast. I just gotta say, because I see the 30 seconds. We were on that desk having a great time cutting up, and someone asked, like I said, somebody was a zaddy, and I think it was Drea, because she was like, I don't really know what that means. She's like, what's a zaddy? And I said, Mike Golic is our King Zaddy. This man is so handsome, and she agreed. So just to make you uncomfortable on the way out, Gojo, had to flirt with your dad a little bit. This makeup is for you, senior. You are a Zaddy King, and we love you. Love you.
Always loved you best, Al. Always loved you best. Thank you.
Unreal. Yep. Yes.
What can I say? I don't have to say it.
You don't.
It's said for me.
It's said for you, and Gojo's therapy bills just keep, piling up.
Yeah, no, Laura continues to just cash in off my pain and suffering. Between that and the butt photo as a kid, I've got enough to last a lifetime, courtesy of my father's exploits here. If anyone's missed it, Katie Nolan, Elle Duncan, Mina Kimes have all had a real great time in public, making me feel like crap by talking about how hot my dad is. So thanks to friend of the program, Elle Duncan, who was kind enough to join us, I believe, this week to talk about the women's tournament in March Madness. And thankfully, she spared us this time around. Maybe that means you're losing your fastball finally, Dad, since she didn't feel compelled to bring it up on the show.
No, I think it's more they're thinking of you, that they've rubbed it in enough to where you have your therapist on speed dial. I think it's more for your well-being that they don't mention it anymore.
Yeah, they're thinking
You know what?
of you.
Good. Maybe it's time for my friends to start thinking about my mental health instead of your gray hairs that they like so damn much. So, speaking of fastball, so I can get away from this and the pain inside my heart, Major League Baseball opening day menu highlight. The Philadelphia Phillies select the S'mores Quesadilla. Dad, as we've talked about portability to the seat, maybe the best of the bunch here. There are few things as easy and enjoyable to eat in public as a good quesadilla. And I don't know why it took me this long in life to have a dessert at quesadilla introduced into my life, but man, I'm so glad the Phillies did this.
I mean, one of my favorite desserts is s'mores. Oh, my God, with a quesadilla. And again, you're right. Just like the tiramisu and the helmet, it's easily transportable. It's easily accessible, and it's easily eaten in your seat. You have to take that into consideration, the ease of which eating, and quesadillas are very easy to eat. So thumbs up for the Phillies on this one, because listen, I'll take a great ballpark dessert over a dog or a burger, even though I'll take that too.
Question though, is this a branding thing? Because it sounds like a crepe to me. So are we just branding it a quesadilla because, okay, we're trying to appeal to the masses. We don't want to be too fancy, telling people it's a crepe.
Nope.
Got it.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to win the Philly crowd by telling them that they're getting crepes at the ballpark here.
Exactly.
And so all you really do is you just got to give it the 6 slice. You know how if you were going to slice up a tortilla, the 6 is technically it's a quesadilla, so it's thirds. But once you slice it triangle style, it becomes a quesadilla. It's a crepe before that because really all the same tenants, but then it's the tri-slice, Dad, that I think makes it a quesadilla instead.
Jesse, you're 100% right. You just aren't going to call it a crepe. You're just not going to. A quesadilla just sounds better, even though crepe is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a crepe.
Yeah.
But quesadilla just has that oomph about it.
Yeah, crepe is a little too elitist.
Like
we want to just bring this, it's a quesadilla. Okay, got it. I'm following.
There you go.
I'd like to get to a point as a society where we can talk about eating crepes in public and people don't have to feel so bad about it. Everyone should be able to live their truth. And as Dad said, even a savory crepe, phenomenal. Like a ham and cheese crepe, delight.
Yes.
So enjoy it however you want it. Call it whatever you like. Either way, it is going to be available for you in Philadelphia at the Phillies ballpark when you want to go check out a game in honor of opening day. Jesse, let's talk quarterbacks and young quarterbacks. We've been talking so much about the draft prospects here. Our guy in Minnesota, J.J. McCarthy, has been sort of hanging in the wind throughout the last couple of weeks, and the brass there finally spoke up about him the other day in a way that gives me pause.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying that they want J.J. McCarthy is QB1, but they're not ruling out more Rodgers talk. So what do you guys make of these comments? Because it kind of seems like saying a lot, to me, sounds like saying a lot of nothing.
Yeah, so Dad, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the general manager for the Vikings, came out the other day and basically said Kevin O'Connell and Aaron Rodgers have had extensive conversations about his potential role with the Vikings. And when pressed on it, Kwesi wouldn't really shut the door on that still as an option because Aaron Rodgers has not signed anywhere, as much as people tried to shut the door publicly the other week in the battle of insiders on this. Adolfo Mensah wouldn't really do that, but said ultimately their hope is that J.J. McCarthy is the guy. That's the outcome they want, which I do believe, Dad. It's better for everyone involved if the guy that they drafted and is on a rookie deal ends up starting and doing well. But right now, their actions indicate that they're only so comfortable with that, and it sort of underscores where the Vikings are at. They're a team in a legitimate contention window that has to potentially hand the reins over to a guy that hasn't played any NFL football and is coming off an injury. And so looking at a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who could potentially be a veteran to come in at the helm of an offense they feel pretty damn good about, and a play caller they think would pair really well in Kevin O'Connell with damn near everyone, I can understand why they're taking that look. But it does put J.J. McCarthy in a really interesting spot because everyone says they love you, but the actions don't necessarily match up with that right now.
Well, when Brett Favre made his three-team tour for the Packers, the Jets, and Minnesota, remember when he signed with Minnesota, he signed in August. So it was during camp that he signed. So it is possible that Minnesota. Now, I don't know if I don't think Aaron is going to wait that long. Maybe he will. Will it still be the door still be open at Pittsburgh, or will it be Mason Rudolph? Will they go get another vet out there and close the door on Aaron Rodgers? Because I think what Minnesota is waiting for, you can see the rehab of J.J. McCarthy and see how well he's doing. Again, he got hurt in the preseason, so he's had a much longer time to rehab that knee, but you haven't seen him in action, right, in actual games, whether preseason or regular season games since the knee injury. So maybe they're a team that doesn't just hand the starting job, though. Because if he's 100% healthy and ready to go, I would just hand him the starting job. Said you're the quarterback. Maybe they're waiting to see how he goes through everything and give it more time, because eventually he's going to be the starter. So I think it more hinges on J.J. McCarthy and how he progresses than whether they're going to get Aaron Rodgers or not.
I do think that is also an interesting way to view all of this is what if Aaron Rodgers, who we've always said, like lurking in the background and has been reported, is the idea that, hey, if he didn't like any of these options all that much, he could just retire instead of going through this another year. And if waiting out the Minnesota Vikings, like you just mentioned, Dad, till training camp, something I hadn't really entertained the thought of, if he just wanted to say, hey, it's Vikings or bust. I see how good that team is. I see how good Kevin O'Connell is, even though the way KOC runs offense and the way Aaron Rodgers traditionally has liked his offense, kind of at odds. Aaron Rodgers likes a more static offense. Kevin O'Connell likes a little bit more movement in his. Even if that's the case, and he says that's probably my best option at actually pursuing a championship outside, Pittsburgh it being maybe the next closest, but still not a sure thing. You wonder if he puts all his eggs in that basket and says, I'll either wait around and see if J.J. McCarthy can live up to what Minnesota wants, and if that option doesn't materialize, then I'll just call it a day and not put my body through anything less than that going forward, which would be really interesting and make for a long summer of Rodgers for everyone covering the sport.
Well, see, that's the thing with Aaron. If he's thinking about playing, but the right situation doesn't come about and he doesn't play, I got to believe during preseason, if a quarterback gets hurt, Aaron's going to come out and play. And I would say this, if Aaron Rodgers didn't play this season and an opportunity came about next season, he would want to play. I just don't think football is out of him at this point, and he is just looking for the right situation. And if he has to wait a year, again, he'll be a year older. I think he's still, if the right situation would come about, he would still want to play.
I would agree. It seems like there's still enough of that desire, and we're deep enough into the offseason now where, to the point you always make, Dad, right after the season, whatever that immediate reaction is, a lot of times guys will wait because you're coming off a long season, you're exhausted, you've just gone through this physical and mental trial that's so unique. We're deep in the offseason now. I don't know how much more darkness Aaron would need to go and make the decision on his future. So clearly there's enough of an itch to entertain this all, and it'll be interesting to see what the Vikings' role is. Again, I ultimately think, Dad, and I think you agree the last time we talked, handing the reins over to J.J. McCarthy is, if he is healthy, I think is the right way to go about this, just because the surrounding infrastructure is what every other team in the draft is chasing right now. It's why when we see all these mocks, the last two that we've seen from Mike Tannenbaum and Matt Miller, that have Jackson Dart getting picked late in the first round by the Los Angeles Rams, and people talk about these guys' ability to have success. That's the ultimate key to freedom if you're a young quarterback. I know it sucks to not have your name called early on, but if you fall to the late round and you land at a place like that has the right coach and play caller, that might give you the chance to sit and wait a little bit and has a bevy of weapons for you to work with, you're so much better off in the long run and with what you need as the foundation of your career. And so for Jackson Dart, that would be manna from heaven. And for J.J. McCarthy, especially with the investment in interior offensive line this offseason, you can't ask for much more in terms of the environment to find out if you've got the guy than what Minnesota's got right now. So why not start your future tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, not just the interior linemen. They've spent $300 million this offseason, to help the team, obviously in the interior of the offensive line as well. And as we've talked about, a division that I think is more open than maybe others think. I know Detroit's a slight favorite to win, but they've had massive changes, including their two coordinators. Minnesota's going to have a different quarterback. Green Bay, again, seems to be the quiet team that's going to really challenge. And while I think the Bears will be better, I don't think they're going to challenge for the division. But I think that division and it had two obviously high-quality teams last year from a win standpoint in Detroit and Minnesota. And I think it's going to be with Green Bay, too. What am I saying? Green Bay was double-digit wins as well. And I think we could definitely have that again.
That division was so good, Dad, that the team in the Detroit Lions who won the division and was the 1 seed in the NFC were the ones that came to the NFL with the rule proposal this year to seed the postseason by record instead of by division winner, because they saw we were 1 game away from being the 5 seed in the tournament. We were 1 game away, losing at the end of the season, from all of a sudden having to play on wild card weekend instead of being at home on the bye. And so that's how tightly wound that division is, and that's why this decision goes, to go all the way back to the original point, weigh on the Minnesota Vikings so much, I'm sure, because Kevin O'Connell's an incredibly smart, empathetic, in-touch guy. If anyone we've seen over the last run of years has done, like what the series quarterback did for Kirk Cousins' Q rating, I think the NFL mic'd up sounds that get released every week have done for Kevin O'Connell, where we saw him going up to Anthony Richardson and telling him and reinforcing what a great player he thinks he is. We saw what he's meant to Sam Darnold in this last year. He gets it. And so if he's even having reservations and having the conversation with Aaron Rodgers, then, Dad, I'd imagine that's a conversation that's worth having given what we know about him and given what's in front of this team opportunity-wise. So, again, I don't begrudge him that, but it cannot help but be somewhat of an indictment on just, hey, we do recognize there's risk in giving the keys over to a rookie that hasn't played the same way the Chiefs did one day with Patrick Mahomes, and the rest was history.
And I think what helps this with Aaron Rodgers is Pittsburgh. How long is Pittsburgh willing to wait? We don't know the interior workings of their conversation with Aaron Rodgers, but is there going to be an end date to where they're going to say, Aaron, it's past the point, we're not going to sign you, and then Aaron is in real danger of not having a team of Minnesota saying, JJ's our guy, we're going with him. And then Aaron, all of a sudden, the musical chairs at quarterback, all the chairs are filled, and the music is stopped, and he's just standing there, and we'll have to retreat to the darkness for the season. So I wonder if there is a off switch for the Steelers that said, past this date, you know what, we're no longer interested.
We'll look to Cam Hayward to sort of be the flag in the wind to tell us which way that's going, because remember, that was the man who said he wouldn't go on a darkness retreat with Aaron Rodgers. If you want to be the Steelers quarterback, you will be. Did come out and soften the stance a little bit, said I was misconstrued, and that if, having a guy like Aaron Rodgers around the building would be pretty cool at this juncture. So I think Pittsburgh has made it clear, their leadership has made it clear, we want this guy. But, Dad, you bring up the right point, is how long are you willing to go into this offseason without the clear answer at that position if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers, who also probably feel like they're built to contend? Coming up next, another day, another mock. We'll take a look at what the future might hold for the top prospects in the draft, and arm length gate next.
Welcome back to Gojo and Golic. We have another crazy expensive auction item. So the only game-worn photo-matched jersey to ever surface from Michael Jordan's 84-85 debut season was sold at auction for $4.215 million by Sotheby's. It is the fifth most expensive NBA jersey ever sold at auction. Only a jersey that Jordan wore during 17 games of the 96-97 NBA season, $4.7 million. Wilt Chamberlain's 1972 NBA Finals Game 5 championship clinching Lakers jersey, which sold for $4.9 million. Kobe Bryant's 08 MVP game-worn signed Lakers jersey, $5.8 million. And another one of Jordan's jerseys, The Last Dance, $10.1 million, sold for more.
in an absolute panic because I was a senior in college looking to get like my first TV job, right? And all of a sudden I have 7,000 notifications. My heart dropped. What happened? What did I do? But the craziest part of it all is we were in college. So he's saying, I have all this money, I'll take care of you. First of all, buddy, I met you once. Second of all, we're in college, so you don't have money. And third of all, you play club lacrosse. And so the guys asked me if I remembered his last name. I went to my phone to look, and I saved his contact as Jake Meme. So, Jake, I'm so sorry.
Oh, man.
Claudia, our very own Claudia Bellafato, as we discovered back when she was on the show, had become the viral meme of the woman being mansplained to by a guy at the bar. Met the real-life Saxon from this season of White Lotus, it seems. But, Jesse, I'm sure being a woman that just lives and breathes in the world, you've probably been on the receiving end of something resembling this situation before.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, the confidence, the audacity of men, especially when they've had a few drinks, unmatched. I mean, sometimes I wish I had half that confidence and delusion, I would even say. But sometimes now, in the days of cell phones, it makes for an amazing viral moment. And Claudia got to, clown on this guy and go viral for it.
The alcohol that improves the brain, right? That makes guys even smarter than they think they are.
Yeah.
I'm going to mansplain this.
Amazing.
It is like one of the best meme formats is a guy looking like he's trying way too hard to explain something to a woman in a crowd that ends up going in the meme folders for everybody. So kudos to Claudia for being at the center of the storm and coming out on the other side, doing better. We hope she is doing well. The other day saw Claudia post that she had an appendicitis while she was getting ready to try and potentially join us on the show this week in the final week of the show. We're glad she's recovering well right now. Wish her all the best in that. And hopefully none of these guys make an appearance in the hospital to try and explain anything to her while she's... Because I'd imagine you got zero time for that after you deal with the whole appendix thing. That level of pain and doing anything in the hospital, going to give you no patience for that, and you end up just dog cussing out some dumbass dude who's trying to go and spin games. So glad Claudia is feeling better. Hope that continues. Dad, maybe we can send this her way as, again, MLB opening day, highlighting some of the best dishes around the country that ballparks will be trotting out here. And this one, right in your backyard, Dad, in Arizona, the Diamondbacks, the chicken parm sub and filthy mac fries. Now, this one also pretty cumbersome, Dad, and while it sounds delicious, it sounds like heartburn. I know your chief concern with ballpark food is the ability to actually take it back and eat it comfortably in your seat. So where are you at on the chicken parm and filthy mac fries?
Listen, I love the sound. I mean, the first two we've talked about are desserts, the s'mores quesadillas and the tiramisu in a helmet. But listen, I love a good brat, a good dog, a good burger, a chicken parm sub. I'm all for that. Filthy, I love fries in so many different varieties and forms. Filthy mac fries. I mean, this sounds great, but of the ones we've talked about already, this one definitely sounds the most messy and cumbersome to eat at your seat. That's the trick for stadiums, is to find something that's new and innovative, yet still with ease to eat. So I haven't really seen this or seen people trying to handle it to see how it would go with a seat, but I could see it. You would need a decent amount of napkins, I would imagine.
I would imagine
or
preparation
sleeves.
in that way would be very important. So we will rely on our intrepid reporters to go out there and do the work. If you're at a Diamondbacks game and you got a chance early in the season to snap a picture of this thing in the wild and let us know, please hit us up with the goods. Speaking of the goods, mock draft season continues to roll along. Matt Miller, a true sicko, forged in the fires, ESPN draft analyst, friend of the program, put out a 7-round mock this morning.
Oh, my
I
God.
cannot imagine the mind-numbing pain of being into round 6 of this 7-round mock. I'm so glad draft analysts like Matt exist to do this kind of yeoman's work, because that is truly the coal mines of the industry, and he just went down there and did his thing. And, Dad, one of the interesting nuggets and twists on this one in particular, comes courtesy of the influence of one Adam Schefter yesterday on NFL Live. ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter was talking with Matt Miller and the rest of the crew on Live about the number 2 overall pick. The Cleveland Browns, as number 1, seems signed, sealed, and delivered. It's going to be Cam Ward. He's going to be a Tennessee Titan, and no one is disputing that at this point. The number 2 pick becomes a little bit more interesting because when pressed on it yesterday, Adam Schefter, who be knowing, had this to say about the Cleveland Browns and their potential choice at number 2.
Yeah, Matt, it's not going to happen. Abdul Carter's going to go before the New England Patriots pick at 4. It'd be an upset right now if Abdul Carter made his way to number 4. I would handicap Abdul Carter right now as the likely pick at number 2 today. We reserve the right to change our mind. A lot of things change, but the way this is shaking out to me, fluid, it looks like he's tracking to be a Brown.
So, and Matt says in his mock draft, Dad, that with that in mind, it kind of, helped inform the way that he viewed that. And so this is always the difficulty, Dad, because Adam Schefter is incredibly plugged in. He's usually a guy that's not saying things by accident. And so this idea that Abdul Carter, who's been campaigning to be the number 1 pick, now could be the number 2 pick, becomes even more interesting as we've been going 1-2 with quarterbacks so much recently.
Oh, I don't think it's rocket science to think Abdul Carter was going number 2 to the Browns. I mean, to put on the other side of Myles Garrett, that's just a fit. If they're not going to take a quarterback, which it doesn't look like they're going to, Abdul Carter is the to me, the easy choice to be number 2.
But Dad, it's less so like the prognostication of it and more so Adam Schefter is someone who talks to the people that could potentially be making this decision. And so how informed is this versus the rest of us just having an opinion on it? His status as an insider is what makes this more interesting to me.
Listen, he's a great insider, but I don't listen to anything during draft season because everybody lies. It is called lying season for a reason. So do I think that insiders are getting misled? Yes, I do, because that's what teams do. Teams try and create leverage, try and create of who they're going to, a possibility of a quarterback to have somebody trade up. It is absolute lying season. So to get truthful answers, I think is very difficult.
Well, Dad, then let's play this out. Who benefits from this news being out there of Abdul Carter being the number 2 pick in the draft?
Who benefits? I think it's like Tennessee or the Tennessee Titans. They're going with Cam Ward. I just think the Browns are not going to go quarterback. I mean, again, are they going to get somebody to trade up? I know what you're saying. The Browns would leak out that they're looking for a quarterback to have somebody trade up. So maybe they're just like Tennessee and basically saying, nobody is saying exactly who they're going to take. I mean, I just personally don't believe that. I just don't believe it.
I would too, I guess, but I'm not, it's not like a gotcha thing. I'm genuinely asking the question because I think you're right. This is a time of year where you need to question everything that we're told. And so I always think it's a useful exercise to look at this and go, all right, based on what we're hearing, who benefits from this information out there? And so this is the latest thing we have to add to it is if we believe that this is something that people want us to know, who would benefit the most from Abdul Carter being out there? Is it the Tennessee Titans who would all of a sudden be able to say, hey, if you want the quarterback of your choice, you might have to come to us if you really want Cam Ward because this is what people think of Shedeur Sanders. I don't think the Cleveland Browns benefit in any way from this being out there because to your point, if you're the Browns, you want to sell people on this idea that you're going to pick Shedeur so that the desperate New York Giants feel like they need to jump up here. But maybe it's also this understanding that now with the New York Giants having the quarterback in Russell Wilson that they just brought in, they kind of have a backstop to all this. It's why I'm not sure if they're as pressed to go and select Shedeur in the top 5, even if he does go to them and this is the way the board breaks.
Yeah, listen, maybe it's they're saying Abdul Carter. I think they'll take him, but maybe to try and get New England to come up to number 2. Maybe New England, but they have a lot of holes to fill, though they have hit free agency hard, that they would want Abdul Carter. But to have Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter both available, two who are considered generational players. Now we'll see how they pan out. I don't think New England would come up to 2 to get Abdul Carter. At all. I think they'll if the Giants may take Travis Hunter. That may be something that New England if the Giants aren't sure who they're going to take. Are they going to take Shedeur Sanders, or are they going to take his teammate Travis Hunter? That may make the Patriots think about jumping up a spot.
I tend to side, like Mike Tannenbaum brought this the other day up when he was talking to us. He had Armand Membo going to the Patriots at 4. I do kind of agree with him sentimentally, which is the most important need for New England right now is offensive line. And so if you can sit there and collect the best offensive lineman in this draft for your young quarterback, I do think that's going to be pretty hard to justify going in any other direction. Now, if all of a sudden, Dad, 2 quarterbacks go in the top 3 and you are sitting there and you've got Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, I think that's a different equation altogether, because if you get Travis Hunter, you could plug him in at receiver alongside Stephon Diggs and in that room and help out your quarterback in a different way. And if you get Abdul Carter there, I mean, listen, Mike Vrabel's a defensive head coach. He can only ask a man to do so much in terms of self-restraint. I'd imagine he'd be sprinting to the podium to go pick Abdul Carter. But if they're there, I think they go offensive line, and that does become interesting, Dad, if they stand pat, because we've got arm length gate coming back into the fray here. Will Campbell, who has long since been talked about as one of the top, if not the top offensive lineman in this draft, has been a guy who has been measured every which way. And going back to the combine, he was sub 33-inch arms. It was 32 5/8 inches. And everyone started to freak out and start to slide him inside to guard. He got measured at LSU's Pro Day yesterday, Dad, and seemed to hit that magic 33-inch mark, forgetting the fact that he's now been measured senior, I believe, at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine, and at his Pro Day. And it's been, I believe, a different measurement every time, which calls into question some things about this process. But, Dad, with Will Campbell, how much should this matter? How much should the arm length conversation actually come up with offensive tackles in the draft?
Listen, unless the guy has like a 29-inch wingspan and his hands don't go past his waist, I mean, and he's just walking around like a T-Rex. I mean, come on. This is a joke. This is a friggin' joke. Now, I know that there are certain measurements that you hit, but there are great players. Watch him on tape. He measured 32 5/8 at the Combine and measured 33 inches at LSU. And before people say, well, maybe LSU people measured him at his LSU Pro Day. No, NFL scouts measure him at the Pro Day. So there's no conspiracy theory there. 32 5/8 at the Combine where everybody goes, uh-oh. 33 at his Pro Day where everybody says, whoo, he checked the box. Are you kidding me? Do you know the minute difference of 32 5/8 to 33? Watch the guy on tape. Now, maybe he gets kicked down to guard at some point. I don't know. But, oh, my God. This, to me, is a frigging joke.
It is funny. Now, to your point about outliers, his wingspan measured at the Combine last week would be the shortest wingspan for an offensive tackle at the Combine since at least 1999. 77 3/8 inches his wingspan was measured. So he is in some ways a bit of an outlier there, Dad. He's also probably still the best offensive lineman in this draft. The more and more I watch him, because you look to see, does it show up on tape? To your point always, it's, hey, go back and watch more. Is he a guy that gets beat because his arms aren't long enough? What's the advantage of that if you're an offensive tackle? I thought George Foster did a really good thread on that, former NFL offensive tackle, about how wingspan essentially largens your margin of error as a player. Hey, if I can touch a guy a little bit sooner and a little bit further away, it buys me some time if other things mess up. And does occasionally Will Campbell get beat because of his arm length? Yeah, I think that shows up. Do I think he could be one of those guys that really supernovas down at guard, but could absolutely be a tackle for you and should get that chance to try? Yeah, that's probably where I land overall.
The joke about this to me, though, Mike, is at the Combine at 32 5/8 there were question marks, and at his Pro Day it's 33 and the box is checked. That to me is the biggest joke of all, that little bit of distance is all of a sudden, whew, okay, 33, we're good now. I mean, come on.
People taking the game of inches moniker very seriously around this time of year as Will Campbell and others get measured every which way ahead of the NFL draft. Coming up next, let's measure the words of one prominent college basketball coach and define how much they matter. Next on Gojo and Golic.
I'd say a little bit has changed. Your old podcast partner is your coach, and your son is on the team. So just how different is this season to going into this season compared to the other, umpteen years?
No, it's definitely different in the sense of, just mentioning, with Bronny being a part of the team now. I'm looking at you two guys right now. I think it's one of the greatest things in the world to be able to work with your kid, So, this week we got back into the gym, and it was really the first time that me and Bronny, was basically on the floor as professionals, training, going against each other, preparing, for the season. And I had a couple moments where I kind of I lost focus, and I'm not used to losing focus when I'm out on the floor, but I was a couple times I was just looking to the side and just watching him prepare and watching him go after it. And it was just, it's going to be an unbelievable year for myself, and I hope for him as well.
The hashtag LeBronversation part 1 here over at DKN. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Jesse Cofield with LeBron James talking then about his first cracks at working with his son Bronny to now what we got yesterday on Pat McAfee with some of the response and reaction to criticism that's mounted since Bronny's gotten on the court in actual NBA games. It's interesting to watch how that one's aged, Dad.
Yeah, it is. I remember the first time we worked together and we flipped the microphone on and you talked. I said, wow, what a great moment. And wow, does he sound dumb? That was just my first initial thought.
Yeah. And here we are.
Now, it was probably an accurate one. I haven't gone back, and I'd say not much has changed, quite honestly, there. So it's aged like remarkably well. Good take. But it's interesting there. I will say that. But Dad, speaking of interesting here, I don't have a clever segue because I am a little bit dumb sometimes. Major League Baseball's opening day, the Dodgers right here in Los Angeles for your boy. And this one, an interesting menu item here, as coming up in 12 minutes. You want to stick around. Our buddy Emerson Latzia going to stop by and power rank his top 5 hot dogs for the upcoming Major League Baseball season. And I do wonder if Dodger Stadium's The Slugger, it's a 16-inch jalapeno cheddar sausage served at Dodger Stadium, is going to make the cut. Impressive length, Dad. They give you an extra bit of support because they also wrap it in with some fries. The trough that you bring this back on, and I believe trough is the appropriate word, seems like it would at least be sturdy enough to carry, gives you a good bit of support in the lap, but is still going to be difficult for you to probably eat. You're going to have to get to know your neighbor pretty well.
Yeah, you are. But in the trough, it does seem pretty sturdy. You're going to have a lot of napkins. You're going to have to worry about splash on your neighbors. So hopefully it's family and friends that you're sitting with because it may get a little crazy. But listen, I like hot dogs. I love sausage and I love brats. So I would lean toward the sausage and brat more than I would the actual hot dog, especially a little burnt. You know, I like it a little burnt, a little crispy. But boy, my mouth's watering with all this food talk.
I just feel like mixing a sausage with jalapenos is sort of flirting with disaster, but who am I to judge?
Oh, I mean, listen, when you go to a ballpark, you know you have to leave with a stomach ache and heartburn. I mean, that's just part of the ritual. You have to feel sick the rest of the day.
Yeah, the American dream.
Yeah, it's kind of like Thanksgiving where you understand the assignment.
Yep.
This may be a different strokes for different folks kind of moment. So we'll let everyone approach opening day how they want to, and we will get the main course with Emerson in about 10 minutes here. Jesse, let's talk about, we mentioned March Madness, the Sweet 16 gets going again. One of the teams that will be back home watching the rest of this are the UConn Huskies, the back-to-back defending champions who in a quest for a third straight title fell short going up against a Florida team that most people had picked to win the tournament. But it was less about their road to get there in the dismount and more about the actions of Danny Hurley, their head coach, who had a lot to say after their loss to Florida and now seems to actually be owning up to some of that.
Yeah, so immediately after the game, he's walking off the court with the players. He's going through a tunnel. He had some words that he said to some of the Baylor players who were getting ready to enter the court on their own, and it was caught on a camera phone, posted on the interwebs, and now he is responding to the viral clip. It's not a soundbite. Okay.
I don't think we have a soundbite here, actually.
But a soundbite, so I was waiting for it. He basically said, I hope the officials don't screw you like they screwed us. And he was very heated.
He didn't say the word screw.
No, he didn't say the word screw, but I'm not going to say the word that he said. Or should I? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So just in looking at what he said, to Jesse's point, he said, I hope the officials don't bleep you like they bleeped us.
It's the
and this
F-word.
was caught on camera by Charlotte Sports Live, Queen City News' Joey Ellis. The Charlotte Sports Live reported then that the UConn director of men's basketball communications, Bobby Mullen, asked him to remove the video and made threatening comments to him. And all of this, Dad, had the undercurrent of people wondering, Bobby Hurley saying that this was, saying that this was, Danny Hurley, saying that this was an area that reporters usually aren't. This is usually for the combatants. This is usually where we can kind of blow off some steam. But still, Dad, I thought in his apology, and he addressed this the other day, the idea that he was bummed that this took away from discussing UConn's incredible run over the last 3 years, and that this took away from what they did, and that while he says he's not going to change, he's going to continue to be that fiery competitor. That's who UConn brought in when they brought him to be their head coach. He does wish that he hadn't made those comments and distracted away from this. And overall, I thought the way that he approached this situation for a guy that says, I'm not going to change, and Dad, part of me thinks he shouldn't. Part of me thinks that he is, overall as a character, really good for college basketball. Having the awareness to say, yeah, I clearly messed up in this situation is the most adult thing to do, and we rarely see that in sports with apologies.
Yeah, and we're in a part of society where you would probably need to see that more, because back in the day, as they say, you could blow off steam because there wasn't a camera, and especially a camera phone in your face at all times. I mean, they always say in this business, don't even in a break, don't say anything, because every mic is a hot mic and something can get out. And I get that, right? But you're in a certain situation with a microphone. But you're on the court, you're in the hallway, you're in the locker room. Hell, even the locker room was invaded. The Pittsburgh Steelers, didn't Antonio Brown was taping, live feeding a Mike Tomlin post-game talk? I mean, your own players are having a live feed. So we're in a day and age, and it's tough because you do need a place to blow off steam. That's why you wait. Basically, I think it's 10 minutes before you can go in an NFL locker room. The players get to go in the locker room first, and if there's anything vented, you vent it. Now, you still may get some good stuff, but in NASCAR, you get cameras right in the face of these drivers right away after bad stuff happens, and you see fights, you see swearing, and that's what TV wants. They want the controversy. And in today's day and age, coaches have to know, no matter where you are, and the Mike Tomlin example says even in a locker room where there are others more than before even media gets in, there is support staff that could have a phone going that you just don't know. And it's a shame because you do need to blow off steam at some point. You really do. But man, you just don't know if there's a camera phone on you or a microphone around you. It's just everywhere, and everything gets picked up. It's tough because, listen, I always say never take anything to heart on the sideline of a football game where two players are blowing up at each other or a player and a coach are arguing or there's pushing and shoving. It's the heat of the moment. It happens, but it's going to get recorded today. In just about any sport, in just about anywhere. You can say there's not supposed to be anybody in the hallway. There's not supposed to be anybody in the locker room. I get it, and that's true, but it ain't always going to work that way.
It was close enough to the tunnel, too, where this isn't, to me, what got said behind closed doors in a locker room getting out.
Right.
I'm with you. You should still have a space that's yours in the midst of mass media coverage in sports. You should have a space that is just for the players and coaches. And I understand and believe that coaches maybe feel like this is also space that should be theirs. But it was close enough to a lot more people than just this one camera phone to where someone was going to have a chance to hear it. And if you're Danny Hurley, you set the tempo for your program, and he acknowledged that. He said there are three great officials on that game. And so I thought, although I said something in the heat of the moment in that arena, those are three great officials and the three great refs, and Florida earned it. If I don't go off the rails at the end there, after that 3-year run ended in excruciating fashion, if I don't have that emotional outburst, probably all people are talking about is the run that we've had and the amazing players. Bobby regrets just like I do regret in that moment I've had. Obviously, it's all my fault that Bobby got pulled into that. But he said, I have to control the way that this goes. And if I don't start us down this path, we don't get here. And that to me is at least at leadership and owning that. Danny Hurley can continue to be a fiery competitor, someone who I believe probably would have said this in front of a microphone later. Like, I think part of the believability of this is it doesn't fly in the face of who Danny Hurley has been as a public figure for basketball, which is quite honestly, Dad, closer to the norm of the sport's history, right? College basketball has always been populated by coaches that are the stars. It is a sport where they have generally been the figures that we think about in a sport that turns over its player base every 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And so Danny Hurley, being the star of that UConn program, feels familiar around college basketball. And in a day and age, I understand the cries that I've heard from a lot of people, in a day and age where people are so media trained, and everyone tends to be so straight down the lane, driving with hands at 10 and 2, does Danny Hurley represent something worth protecting? And I think overall the answer is yes. That doesn't mean he can't mess up. And even Danny Hurley looked at the situation and said, I put us in a position to where the wrong things are being talked about. It's what you've said to me since day one, Dad. Don't make problems for the other people on your team with what you say and do. And Danny Hurley acknowledged, hey, I made problems for our SID, for our players, and for the discussion around our program, and took it to a place it shouldn't have gone. And I just appreciated that. I'm not asking him to change all that much, but even he looked at this and said, yeah, this was a clear misstep that we can all agree on.
Yeah, well, exactly right. I mean, he owned up to it because he's not going to change, right? He's a fiery coach who says some fiery, sometimes outlandish things, and he's not going to change. And like I said, there's just less and less, quote unquote, safe places where you can unload how you want to unload. But even like you said, he was just walking off the court. It's not like he was in a private area anyway. So to think that wouldn't maybe be heard, I think may have been a little naive on Hurley's part.
Listen, guys, it has been a tough week for, reporters being in places that they're not supposed to be. Okay, so now we just all have to assume that there's always a reporter present, even in your group chats, okay?
Yes, exactly. So maybe the UConn faithful just need to learn how to use Signal a little bit better, and then things would have been a little bit different in this scenario. But I think Dan Hurley summed it up best when he said, I wouldn't change one aspect of how I coach a game or how hard we fight, but I'd like to get on and off the court without incident. That feels like the appropriate epitaph for this. That feels like something that everyone can get down with, no matter which side of the how Danny Hurley should act fence you fall on. And now, Dad, thankfully, I think what that also does is cauterizes the wound a little bit. Like when he comes out and doesn't fight this anymore, now all of a sudden we can put this to bed and Florida can move on, which I thought was appropriate in his comments too, to say Florida earned this. Florida played a great game.
Right.
Walter Clayton Jr. went out there and balled out. Now let those guys go continue the rest of their tournament run without any sort of like protest hanging over the way that things went.
Now we have 2 all-time coaches left in John Calipari with Arkansas and Tom Izzo with Michigan State, who came out and really blasted the portal being open during the tournament. So we have a couple of more coaches to hang on to.
It's good. You know, in this day and age, we talk all the time about the young coaches that can come in and relate to their players. You know, the hilarity of John Shire the other day coming out after comments made about his playing career and saying, my players don't even believe I played basketball. Those guys don't have any respect for my playing career, and how these guys can kind of laugh it off. We need a couple of salty dogs in the mix to keep everyone honest. We need a couple of graybeards going through the rest of the tournament here that are going to pop off with a rant about the current state of affairs every once in a while and give us some good stuff to sink our teeth into. So I, for one, am glad to see Cal, Tom Izzo still dancing, still going out there and putting on for the old guard, most of whom are quite honestly now on the desk talking about all of this instead of actually having to go out here and shorten their lifespan by coaching these 18 to 23-year-olds. Coming up next, though, let's sink our teeth into the list that we've all been waiting for. Noted glizzy gobbler Emerson Latzia, the hot dog expert of the DraftKings Network, going to stop by and point us in the right direction as we all get ready for opening day.
I emailed you guys last night. I've had 2 pairs of underwear my mom bought me 9 years ago before moving to Boston. Those are the only 2 pairs of underwear that I rotate on and off my body, that I only have rotated on and off my body for the last 9 years.
Wait, 2?
Just 2.
Why? 2 seems like you're trying to prove a point to somebody, and I don't know who. What do you do on vacation?
Golic Sr., when I hugged you there on our stage inside the Arizona Convention Center, I was wearing the same underwear that I'm wearing right now.
Welcome back to Gojo and Golic. Jesse Cofield now joined in studio at the DraftKings Network headquarters by Emerson Latzia, who does own more pairs of underwear after that. The cry for help was heard by the masses, and now he has more underwear. But just a reminder of how lawlessly you were living for a while, Emerson. What's up, you maniac?
I'm sorry, I call BS on that because I know that you work out every day.
Yeah.
So were you doing laundry every single day?
I wear
you work out in one
and I
pair.
explained it on that show, Jesse. So thank you for watching. When I work out, I have workout shorts that have built-in underwear.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's outside of the gym, rotated too. But
Yeah.
want everyone to know I am wearing a fresh pair today. I pulled it out of the dryer this morning. It is one of the new pair that I received last year.
Did you get rid of the old ones?
And I don't know why it would gross us out that you rotated 2 pair of underwear for 9 years. That's between you and your wife. She's the one that's got to live with that.
Yeah,
Sure,
I mean,
she was disgusted. I can.
One of the many reasons, she regrets marrying me, which will celebrate 12
I
years
bet
in
there's
May.
many
Can't wait.
regrets.
Oh my God,
Congratulations.
love it. Yeah, thank you so much, guys. How are you? Good morning. I'm gonna miss you guys, by the way.
Yeah.
We're going to miss you too,
sad.
Emerson, and that's why we felt like we needed to get you back here in the building outside of sending us just a cavalcade of Shrek memes. We had missed your presence on this show, and we wanted you to come on here and do the thing that you know how to do better than anybody alive. Power rank hot dogs. It's opening day of Major League Baseball season. There are great specialty dogs, and so Emerson's going to give us his list of top 5 hot dogs. But first, in the interest of putting our freak cards on the table the way that Emerson did with his underpants and with the Shrek memes, I want to show you guys an image that was just sent to me and my family group chat. So, Emerson, as you get ready to grade these hot dogs, I want you to grade these brats that my dad cooked. My dad mentioned in the last segment that he likes his brats extra crispy.
Those look great.
And you might be hearing that going, well, how crispy is extra crispy? Yates, do we have the picture?
Yeah.
That we can pull up here.
Yeah.
These are the hot dogs. These are the brats my dad burnt to a crisp on the grill the other summer and then tried to gaslight the rest of my family into believing were cooked properly when he brought them to us.
Those are perfect.
Yeah, I do not disagree with you, Mr. G. Those look excellent. Do not be deterred by
You're
the.
such
do
a
not be
filthy
deterred
liar.
by the appearance
Dude.
there. Jesse, you bite into that. Your mouth is filled with sausage juice. It's incredible.
How do you
That's
know? There's no juice coming out of those. They've been dried
You
out.
have to bite into them.
No.
You have to bite into them for the juices to come out.
Absolutely right. There is plenty of juice in them. Oh, they're fantastic. Got the crispy outside and the tender inside. Oh.
Senior,
She doesn't know.
senior,
She's out there in her backyard with her fancy,
How do you
pizza
like
oven.
How do you like your steaks cooked?
My steaks like medium. I like a medium.
Medium rare.
Oh.
I go medium rare.
Medium? You mean well done? You sick freak.
Wait, there's a difference
Honestly,
of medium and well done.
I don't know, you
okay?
didn't sound
That's
sure.
why
You
there
were
are
like,
varying degrees.
medium.
Yeah, I used to be a medium guy, but that thing still cooks as it's coming to you, so you got to go medium rare.
Medium rare.
Yeah.
These brats look like they were cooked in the reactor core at Chernobyl.
Yeah,
like
dude.
these look like they're going to survive nuclear winter.
They look like they've been to
So
war. These are soldiers coming home from war.
Yeah, too much.
These brat dogs have seen hell. They miss their families. Emerson, we need you to point us in the direction of some more edible tube meat. We asked you to take a look at the top 5 hot dogs and rank yours around Major League Baseball as we get ready for opening day. So what do you have here? Do you want to do this 5-1?
Yeah,
ready to go?
yeah. Let's go 5-1. I want to be honest. I've just tried one of these on this list, but this would be my top 5 based on the description of every glizzy at every ballpark in Major League Baseball. Number 5 here. All right, we're going to Pittsburgh. Okay, that's where the Pirates play. They have the Renegade dog, a foot long, loaded with tender pot roast, mini pierogies, and caramelized onions and pickle slices. How good does that sound? More meat on top.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, on top of the meat. And Jesse, aren't you Polish? Like you like pierogies and stuff? They're like little mini raviolis.
I'm not Polish. My husband's Polish, but
I knew I was close.
I do see the putting. It's just putting a tiny version of another food on top of the hot dog.
Yeah.
And the people go crazy for it. So men,
That's
simple
the thing.
creatures.
I mean, the testing of the mixes, right?
Yeah.
The mixes of what you can put on a dog. And this is, wow, what an array of things.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a trend here, too, throughout this list of glizzies. There's going to be one vegetable that is pretty
Real
frequent.
Frankenstein situation.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
All right, Blue Jays. All right, let's go north of the border here, guys. This is going to be like Cracker Barrel on glizzy here. It's called the poutine dog, okay? A Schneider's glizzy topped with hash brown potato, Jesse, cheese curds, and then some of that nice, thick, moist gravy. Huh?
Oh.
Yeah. Cheese curds are incredible.
I am going to need new pants after this. Dear God.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, clean up on all your pants. That's how good these glizzies are.
Okay.
Let's go to Texas, okay? Let's go to the Rangers. It's where our beloved Red Sox will start the season today. The Ranchero Chili Relleno dog. And there's 2 W's in dog.
Okay.
Beef hot dog here. Topped with Texas chili, stuffed with queso chihuahua, wrapped in a roasted banana pepper, and then again in bacon, grilled, placed on a Martin's potato roll, and finally smothered with grilled onions. Yeah, Mr. G, go ahead. Let it out. Let it out, big man.
That one's going to, now, while that sounds good, that one, again, eating it next, you better know the people eating next to you, because you're going to have spittle flying on that. You're going to have parts of food flying everywhere. That's going to be a mess to eat.
I will say a lot of the times if I get a messy food at a ballpark, I'll try to eat it close to like the concession stand, maybe over where you put the condiments on the dog, because I just, or I'll stand over like a trash can. I don't like eating the messy stuff at my seat for that reason.
Okay. Keep going.
No, for God so loved the world that he sent that hot dog so that we might know that he loves us.
This one is interesting. At number 2, we're going to Seattle, where the Mariners present to us the ultimate Seattle dog. I have been, oddly enough, messaged by multiple people over the past few weeks to say, try cream cheese on a hot dog. So they have a foot-long Frank here with a smear of cream cheese on a freshly baked roll dressed with bacon, caramelized onions, and jalapenos, Mr. G.
Wow.
Come on.
Wow. I mean, the cream cheese is the most wild topping or condiment, whatever, that of any of these things. I would never imagine putting cream cheese on the dog.
I have heard nothing but excellent things about cream cheese on a hot dog out in Seattle.
It's disgusting.
Okay, what's number 1?
Number 1? L.A., the Dodgers, the Dodger dog. Listen, it's simple, it's original, it's skinny, it's 10 inches long, it's an all-pork steamed wiener. Now listen, I am a simple man for the most part. When it comes to a good glizzy, you don't necessarily need all of the toppings here. I was at the All-Star game. Gojo, we hung out in LA a few years ago, MLB All-Star game. I was at Dodger Stadium. I had 5 of these. I had 50 inches of all-pork steamed wiener in my belly. 3 of them I raw dogged because that's how good that this hot dog is. It's the most popular hot dog in baseball. 1.5 bajillion of them are sold every year.
1.5 bajillion. That's wild.
Yeah, that's right. It's
that's actual statistic.
Yeah.
Emerson, how sad were you that AI rendering of the Mets helmet with 12 hot dogs in it wasn't real? That feels like Valhalla for you.
Yeah, it felt like when the horse in Neverending Story died in the swamp of sadness. Artax or whatever his name is. That's how sad I was when I found out it was fake.
Okay. Hot dogs are fake.
I'm going to miss you so much, Emerson.
I love you guys.
I miss you so much.
Don't worry, I'm still going to text you.
He'll still be here,
HR
too.
won't miss you, though.
All right, let's wrap it up the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you to the rest of the day. Download, subscribe, rate, and review the show. Leave it a 5-star rating. Watch us tomorrow, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the Gojo and Golic YouTube channel. Thank you to our guest, Emerson Latzia, for his power ranking of the best hot dogs across Major League Baseball in honor of opening day. If you missed that tour de force of journalism, well, make sure you get it wherever you get our podcast or right here as soon as we are done on YouTube. Guys, let's start off this, that, and the third. One of my favorite things in sports, the wanna feel old post, where inevitably some player we all grew up watching as a child that's now achieved prominence in athletics. And the latest version of this is actually one of the aesthetically coolest we could muster up. LeVar Arrington, all-time famous Penn State linebacker, longtime NFL linebacker, had a son. And that son ate right, worked out, grinded all day and night, and now is a freshman at Penn State. LeVar Arrington II, lining up for the Penn State Nittany Lions in spring football. Dad rocking the same number 11 jersey that his father wore, that now has become a part of the lore at Penn State amongst the great linebackers. Micah Parsons recently wore that. Abdul Carter most recently wore that. And now LeVar Arrington II, having the second in there and also carrying the sticks. Pretty damn cool. And what a hoss this dude is as a freshman. Jesus Christ, they make these kids big.
He's cut up. Now he's 6'3", he's listed at 212 pounds. But as a freshman, you know he's going to paint on a whole lot of muscle under their strength and conditioning program. It's going to be interesting to see how he grows through the years. But already a man build on him. I mean, just wow. Doesn't that make you feel old? Oh yeah. Without question. When I'm calling games and I'm talking about sons of players that I played with or against, it just really, really, really makes me feel old.
Yeah, for reference, LeVar Arrington was an All-American for Penn State from 1997 till 1999. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He was a unanimous All-American and the Butkus Award winner alongside the Bednarik Award and then the number 2 overall pick in the 2000 NFL Draft. And this is my constant reminder that no, the year 2000 isn't 5 years ago like it is in my brain. It's 25 years ago, and I am crawling and inching steadily towards the specter of death with each passing day here. LeVar Arrington II was the 3-star recruit according to 24/7. He chose Penn State over Tennessee, UCLA, Oregon, and Michigan, and thank God he did for the aesthetic. Dad, like you said in our recruiting process, and I'm sure LeVar Arrington gave him some version of the same speech about how this is his choice and about how he needs to go where he feels like he has the best opportunity and where he's comfortable. It's sick to see another LeVar Arrington wearing 11 in the Penn State blue and white. So I'm glad that the place that made him happiest was Penn State.
Yeah, it is. It's just wow. I mean, Penn State fans, young fans will get to read about LeVar Arrington, the dad, and his exploits if they didn't already know about it, which they should if they're Penn State fans. But now have his kid there. Also, a lot of pressure on the kid, right? LeVar was an absolute stud, and his kid's wearing the same number. Going to the same school, basically playing the same position. It's definitely going to be pressure there.
It takes some stones to rock the same number. I'm with you. That was the first thing I thought, too, is, all right, he's not going to duck the smoke. He's not going to run from the legacy. That man is running towards it, and I appreciate that. Jesse, let's get on to that here. A gender reveal that we actually support.
Yeah, Austin Reeves got to do something cool for his brother. He did his gender reveal by choosing his shoes in the color of the baby's gender. So he just walked out and had the shoes on. He didn't have to, start a forest fire or anything like that. So this is the type of gender reveal that we can get behind. And his brother's having a little girl. So sweet.
Yeah, Dad, had to be really an exciting way to do this. A lot of people, when they get the test back, will send it to a relative. And, for our family, we've baked it into a cake before with my brother and sister's kids. You put it inside something edible. In this case, to send it to Austin and have him do it, it's a special edition of his shoe, which I didn't know he had, the Rigger AR2 shoe, which looks pretty comfortable and beautiful in pink. So congratulations to Spencer Reeves on his baby girl that's on the way. Very exciting.
There have been so many documented on the internet of gender reveals gone wrong. I mean, just absolutely gone wrong.
Yeah.
Where unfortunately, there have been injuries of how bad they've gone. This seems so wholesome, right? I mean, your brother playing for the Lakers, playing on national TV, coming out in the sneakers, nothing can go wrong here, right? It's about as pure as can be. So what? Oh, your point. Wait, what could go wrong?
He gets hurt during the game.
Well, I'm just saying, what if he had gone out and, forget if they had lost, you wouldn't ascribe it to that, but, what if these shoes, all of a sudden he went out and rolled his ankle or something in these, and now the injury is associated with the shoes that helped in the gender reveal, and you have that attached to the memory of what's going to, I'm sure, hopefully be a happy, healthy, beautiful baby girl.
Luckily, it didn't happen. Thank God.
Yeah, I was going to say, it didn't happen. I mean,
but it could have.
Okay, that certainly was a possibility, but documented it didn't happen, and we have seen documented just horrific gender reveals before. I thought this overall was a very cool and a very kind of genius way of doing it. Kind of a, you're always looking for a different way to do things. There's so many ways you do a gender reveal. Like you said, we did it within a cake, which is certainly a Golic way, but to try and find something that's different. And this definitely was. I mean, I could pretty much guarantee you this hasn't been done before with an NBA player.
Yeah, that's true.
This is the right way to use your brother's fame also. It allows him to go and get some attention on the shoe and apparel brand that he advertises for. It doesn't ask him to do anything too out of pocket. Everybody wins on this. So good job, Reeves family. And congratulations on the upcoming baby girl. Very excited for them. Jesse, let's finish off with the third. What do we got?
Okay, so we love sports. So what's the most frustrating thing about this thing that we love? There's a top 10 list that's going viral on Twitter about the most frustrating things in sports. Guys, looking at this, what do we think? Do we agree? I don't know. Is this in order? I think it is in order. So is 1 the most frustrating and 10 is the least frustrating? What do we think?
Wow. That's a great list. And listen, I have no problem with number 1 because you look at all the other things involved, and it's basically you're doing something, right? There's an act happening where a false start on 3rd or 4th down, the play hasn't even started. You're on offense. You know the count. You know the count. That's the one advantage, one of the advantages you have over the defense. You know the count, and you false start. Now on 4 on that is jumping off sides on 3rd or 4th down. That's something I did on Monday Night Football when I was in Philadelphia against Washington. And obviously it was announced by, I think it was Al Michaels then. That's a very lonely position to be a false start on offense or jump off side on defense in a critical situation.
Yeah, that's probably the right answer, especially because with the false start, You're the one that knows the snap count. It's the only thing that gets the play started. It requires, I think, the least bandwidth, because the other one that popped up to me, Dad, looking down this list was number 7. And it's because we saw it most recently in that incredible Alabama-Maryland overtime basketball game in the women's tournament of fouling on a three-point shot. This thing that everyone in certain situations knows you're not supposed to do at the end of game. It can completely turn the balance of things. That one, to me, jumped out as the other big hang-up. But it's at least in the throes of the game. You're in the live action. It's not when you're just setting the board like the false start.
I agree. I would also move down giving up offensive rebound. You don't know how the ball's going to bounce off the rim. I mean, right? You may have positioning, but the ball may take a bounce into an offensive player's hand. I would move up 6 higher, missing both free throws. Again, no action involved. It's you with a free shot, and you get 2 of them, and you miss them both. That, I think, should be higher on the list.
I would also say, in honor of opening day, of the baseball ones on this list, they have runners and leaving runners in scoring position at number 3. Striking out looking, to me, and if it's striking out looking to end an inning, is one of the worst visuals in sports. Because to your point about inactivity, you just look like you couldn't do anything. You look frozen and scared, and that's a bad way to go out. Speaking of going out, we got one more of these left, so if you want to download, subscribe, rate, and review tonight, sure, go ahead and do it. We'll be back 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow to shut the lights off on this thing. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you then.